Perfect. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Great. I've been told I've got 3 hours. That will take us to about 7:15. That's great. So it's wonderful to meet all of you, and there's so many in these parts of the room. I'm going to have to move around. So I was listening to your report backs. Very, very inspiring. And I'll touch on some of those. But firstly, just to say congratulations to Piermont, Cliffy. I've known Cliffy for a long time when he was still in the Mine Workers Investment Corporation. Amazing to see what he's doing now with schools. Well done to Ernst & Young and all others who are supporting this initiative. I've been involved in education in South Africa for 18 years, nearly 19 years. It's a very interesting journey, which I'll share with you, and why. Why I'm so passionate about it. I'm also so passionate about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are the people who have light in their eyes. They're always the people that if you run into them in a dark alley, they're going to try and sell you something that's under their coat or something. And they're people who make things happen out of nothing. And in South Africa, and I'll share with you just a few of the statistics, we need to do a whole lot more in terms of entrepreneurship. And I think it was Michelle was talking about 60% of people working in South Africa work in small businesses. There he is at the back. In fact, it's actually higher. It's between 68 and 72% work in a small business. So it is the backbone of our economy. It's the most important segment of South Africa. And yet we're seeing that our schools don't focus enough on how to teach young people to become entrepreneurs. So 2 years ago, I got invited by the Deputy President, Kgalema Motlanthe, to chair a national task team on entrepreneurship and job creation and small business for South Africa. And this is as part of something called the Human Resource Development Council, the HRDC. And when we started with this task and started to look at it and started doing research, you can imagine what a huge, scary task that was to think about how do we fix entrepreneurship and small business in South Africa. And so we put together a team of amazing people, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial educators, and people who are really passionate and knowledgeable about the space, both locally and internationally. And over the last 2 years, we've started an exciting journey. And last week, we had quite a culminative meeting with the National Curriculum Committee in South Africa at the Department of Basic Education. And the DDG, who heads up that area, and his team overwhelmingly agreed that we now have to put entrepreneurship really more front and center in the curriculum in South Africa's education system. So that was a very exciting breakthrough for us. It's something that we've worked on for a long time. We're now going to be presenting to the minister, deputy minister, MECs in the various departments across the country, the provinces, and so on. But it's looking good, and the idea is that ultimately we want to see how from grade 1 all the way to grade 12, education can become more experiential, more alive, more awake, something that doesn't put you to sleep, but something that wakes you up. And the way you're going to wake up in education is if you do things for yourself and not just sit in a classroom all the time and be told what to do and so on. So more project-based learning, more opportunities for young people to also learn about empathy, social entrepreneurship, how to make differences in their communities. There's always opportunities to make a difference. There's infinite need in this country and in our communities. So, and then also on the entrepreneurial side, having people going through our school system having the opportunity to learn how to start businesses in a much more systematic way. So we currently have business studies, and again, Michelle was talking about business studies. So one of the first things we're looking to do, does anyone come from Free State schools here? Is there anyone from any schools in the Free State? There are. Is anyone working with a program Startup and Go? Startup and Go. Okay, this is a project which is a partnership now between the Free State Department of Education and something called the ILO, the International Labour Organization, and 60 schools in the Free State now, in grade 10, in business studies, they've added an entrepreneurial component called Startup and Go. So it's about 3,000 to 4,000 students per year who are going through it. It's been such a success that now Free State want to have this in every school in the province, and now we're looking at how we can roll it out throughout the whole country. So hopefully it will come to your schools, and if some of you would like to volunteer your schools as sites to add entrepreneurship into the curriculum over and above business studies in grade 10, we'd love to work with you. And then it's going to go to grade 11, then back to grade 10, grade 9, and so on. So that's an exciting thing that I think fits in exactly with what Michelle was talking about. We're also looking at the FET colleges. You know that in our FET colleges, less than 10% of people going to college learning how to become hairdressers, engineers, electricians, fitters, turners, etc. Less than 10% of them are learning about entrepreneurship, and less than 1% of students coming out of FET colleges start their own businesses, which is crazy. Because if you're a hairdresser, you should start your own business. Or if you are an electrician or a plumber, you'd make a lot more money if you got some initial training and then went and started your own business. So again, we're working to see if we can make that a compulsory subject for every student, not just the business studies students, but every single student. Just like what we want to do at school level, where as part of life orientation and life skills, we can have every single student learning something about entrepreneurship. On Mandela Day this year, we launched an initiative with all the universities in the country, something called FEDSI, which sounds a little bit like FETCOOK, but it's a federation of all the universities in the country and their entrepreneurial activities. We're wanting to make all of our universities in South Africa hotbeds of entrepreneurship, which at the moment, again, much too few people are coming out of South Africa's universities with great ideas and starting businesses. And it shouldn't just be the people studying business. It must be the people also doing dentistry, engineering. All these people can start businesses if that's the natural thing that they have an interest in. Obviously, not everybody is an entrepreneur, but you look at what started at Stanford University in the United States. Google, we know, was 2 students doing their PhDs at Stanford. That was their research for their PhD, was starting a new kind of search engine. We know that Facebook started where at Harvard, a student who was studying at Harvard and then dropped out. I think everybody knows him, Mr. Zuckerberg, and we know that so many great businesses, Dell Corporation started at the University of Texas. Universities should be a hotbed of entrepreneurship and innovation, and again in South Africa we're not seeing enough entrepreneurship and innovation. In fact, currently in South Africa, and it hurts my heart to say this, because we are such a great nation, and truly there's an entrepreneurial spirit in South Africa, but currently we have by far the lowest levels of entrepreneurship in the whole of Africa. So we look at countries like Malawi and we think, gee, that country's a basket case. We look at countries like Zambia, Ethiopia, where people were starving, Mozambique, and so on. And those countries are actually, in many cases, 4 or 5 times more entrepreneurial than South Africa in terms of the number of new businesses starting up. So there's something about our mindset as a nation, and as a people, we have to really investigate and think about how can we change the mindsets so young people come out of the school system, FET colleges, universities, etc., with a more entrepreneurial mindset. And therefore, I mean, I really commend that as part of this initiative, you're thinking so much about entrepreneurship in your schools and how to inspire your learners with this kind of mindset. Would love to work with you as part of this national initiative we're doing with government. I'll just talk quickly about some of the things we're doing with entrepreneurs, and then I'll share more about my story and why we got into this. So when we look at small businesses in this country, and we're saying that we've got all these small businesses employing all these people, millions of small businesses in South Africa, what we see is every year government's making it harder and harder and harder for those businesses to function and to operate. And yet starting a business, you know, in Australia, you can register a new business over your mobile phone from anywhere in the country in 15 minutes. You can register the name of the business and trademark your business, and in 15 minutes you've got a business. In Rwanda, and I mean, we think about Rwanda just a decade ago with genocide and 1 million people killed. In Rwanda, you can, same thing exactly, over the internet, over your mobile phone, in less than a day you can register a new business. Yet in South Africa it can take up to 8 months to start a new business. So one of the things we've been working on with the organization that registers new businesses called CIPC in South Africa is a partnership with FNB. We wanted to roll out with other banks as well, that you can literally go to a bank and not only open up your bank account, but register your business right then and there. And we're also working to create a mobile solution, which we hope in 2 years will be ready, where you can do exactly the same thing. But some of the other things we've done is we've said, what is the way that we can reach small businesses? And we've got to be very innovative to do that. So if I ask you and you know the answer, what does every single businessman carry with them at all times? Absolutely right, their cell phone. So we know that every single business person in this country's got a cell phone. I think every person in this country has got a cell phone. We've got 51.8 million South Africans. And we have 62 million cell phones in the country. So we know that if we want to reach people, the best way is through their mobile phone. And so what we're developing is something called a National Virtual Incubator. Now this could also be very, very helpful for your schools as you're developing entrepreneurial projects. The first thing that we launched 18 months ago as part of this National Virtual Incubator that we're doing with the DTI, the Department of Trade and Industry, we launched something called Waza Online. I don't know if you've heard of that. Waza Online is free websites. And we've developed a template as well for schools. So can I just see how many of your schools have got their own website? Can I just see? I hope it's all of you. Some? Many don't. Okay. For all of those in the room who do not have a website, please do be in touch with us via Cliffy. Organize a free website for you. You will fill in all the content and we'll give you guidelines for how to create a great website for a school. Okay, we're rolling out an initiative now for 1,600 schools to have their own websites. We've already got now 60,000 South African businesses who've created their own website for free, who didn't have their own website. So that's on the website side to help small businesses so they can tell the world about what they do. Then a lot of business people said, we don't get business knowledge. We can't afford to go to Wits Business School. We can't go to Gibbs. We can't go to University of Pretoria to go study a master's degree in business or a bachelor's degree. So we said, okay, can we make education available to people for free without them having to get a degree or a certificate? Because if you're an entrepreneur, what do you care about? You care about your business model, your business being successful, and if you get your business successful, what will happen? You'll make money. And I'll tell you a great truth of most entrepreneurs is they don't set out to start a business just because they want to make money. They don't. People think they do. And the worst entrepreneurs are the ones who go out there and saying, I want to get rich, I want to make money, so I'm going to start a business. Okay? People must become entrepreneurs because they're passionate about something and they want to solve a problem. And I heard CJ talking about passion and hard work and having a driving, never giving up attitude. So that is what entrepreneurs do. They come up with a gap in society and they say, I will not stop. I will give everything I have to try to solve a problem. And in the process, they can make a lot of money, employ a lot of people, change society, and so on. So that's what entrepreneurs really, really try and do. So we want to help those entrepreneurs. So we said we're just going to give them knowledge for free. And again, another resource that could be very useful for any teachers trying to teach business, etc. Regenesis Business School, which is the #1 business school in the country, has distance education accreditation. In November last year, we launched an initiative that the whole MBA is free. Online. You can just go to their website. An MBA normally costs 100,000 Rand. You can go and read all the books for free, the textbooks, download all the manuals, 200-page manuals on HR, strategy, finance, statistics, every aspect of business. It's all free. A business degree, a Bachelor of Business Administration degree, a certificate in management, and a postgraduate diploma in management. Already nearly 500,000 South Africans have looked at that site now and are starting to look at the content that we've put out there. In the next 6 months, we're launching a tool. Every little business that starts, what is the thing they always tell you that they don't have? Money. They tell you that they don't have money, I can't start a business, I don't have any money, and so on. One of the things I will tell you, as somebody started a number of organizations, is the worst thing often that can ever happen to you is if somebody gives you a lot of money. Usually what happens is most people who get a lot of money to start their businesses, guess what they do with it? they just waste the whole lot. And you come back 2 years later, there's no business, there's nothing happening. So money is often the biggest corrupter in a business. What's much more important are the things that CJ was talking about, that you were talking about. And that is great ideas, using your intelligence, having passion, hard work, and being able to sell a product or a service, okay? That is much more important than just getting lots of money. But money is very, very important at certain stages in a business. So we're launching a tool, again over mobile phone, that anyone can use, that they can find what kind of money they need, where they can find it, and what do they have to do to get that money. So then they can see, can I go to the National Youth Development Agency, NYDA? What are the grants that they offer? Can I go to the National Empowerment Fund? Can I go to SEFA, the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, etc., for money? And this tool will tell you, you'll say, I want 100,000 Rand for expanding my business, etc., and then it will tell you, these are the people you can go to, and then it will say, do you have financial statements? And then you will say, no. Then it will say, okay, you can't go and get funding, but if you click here, and then we're launching a tool with pastel accounting, a free accounting package so that every business can have accounting, and so on and so on. So these are the things we're doing. And for school learners, how many of the learners here are using Mixit? Let's just see. Mixit or Facebook? Put up your hands. Okay, and BBM. Okay, very, very nice. Okay, there you go. So with Mixit, Facebook, we're developing another app with an organization called the Prakhout Foundation. So all the education that we put into schools, we do want to support with cell phone-based support tools as well for learners in the schools. So these are some of the things we're doing, and it's very, very exciting. And our dream and hope is that very, very soon, the ideas that you had in this conference are not just the few schools in this room, but every single school in the country, and that we can change the mindsets of South Africans to think more entrepreneurially. So early this morning, you also heard from a lady called Tracy Webster. Is that right? Can anyone remember back to this morning? You got good memories. That's great to see. And so Tracy heads up something called Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship. Very good. So I was co-founder of the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship with Sir Richard Branson in the year 2006. And I'll share with you a little bit of background of how that whole thing started, and where this all started for me. So I'm a South African, born and bred, and I love this country with my whole heart. And yet, my family, when we grew up, were very, very poor. Okay? My father came to this country when he was 1 year old. And he came with his parents, and they came from a country called Latvia, just next to Russia in Eastern Europe. And they were escaping persecution. They didn't have time to take anything, and they just ran. And they left, just like refugees come to this country from Congo. We've got two students that I was talking to the other day, two young guys. They're 20 years old, both of them, who literally ran away from the war in Congo, and they walked themselves across Africa to ultimately find a place where they could be safe. And then they ended up in South Africa just as car guards, and we've now organized university education for them, and they are brilliant, brilliant students. So being a refugee is not a fun thing, but my parents arrived in this country, my grandparents arrived in this country with just the shirts on their backs. They had absolutely nothing, no money, nothing else, just arrived. And my father was 1 year old, and they were so poor, they said they can't even feed him, they can't keep him here, they're going to actually send him to go live on the south coast with his aunt, who had come to South Africa a few years before. My father, for the first 8 years, never met his parents. And when he came back at 8, for the first time, he got to know his parents, and he couldn't believe they were so poor, life was so tough. Anyway, he went through Jeppy Boys School, the primary school, the high school, and then while he was at school, he started to think, how is he going to bring his family out of poverty? And the idea that he came into his head was that through education, and if he could go to university, then he could change the life of his family. And so what he started to do, just when he was like 13 years old, 14 years old, he started working He got menial jobs, because who's going to give a job to a 14-year-old boy who's at school, after school every day? So he got jobs. He got a job working on the railways, just packing metal. He got a job later on as a lifeguard. He just got menial jobs. Anything he could do, every single cent he made, he saved up so that he could put himself through university. And then later on, he managed to get into Wits University after JEPI, and he got into medicine. He wanted to be a doctor. And the whole way he was studying through medicine, which is difficult, he was working part-time, working in the nights, working on the weekends, so that he could go through university. And then every cent he made, he then put his brother through university and his sister through university. Later on, over time, my dad ended up putting about 34 family members through university. And all of those family members can do anything they want. I'm an actuary. My oldest brother is the chief director for health in South Africa, in treasury and social welfare. My second brother is a maths professor. He's a world-famous professor in America. My brother, just older than me, is a pediatrician, a doctor. It goes on and on and on. If I name all the cousins, everybody, there isn't a single member of my family that isn't successful because of my father, even though he started with nothing. And my father had a very, very interesting philosophy, two philosophies. The first one is that you will be successful if you give to others, and you will be successful if you get educated and you develop your brain. So when we grew up, and we were 4 boys, my 3 older brothers, Mark, David, Greg, and I'm the 4th. We slept on foam mattresses on the floor, just thin foam mattresses with a blanket, okay, in one little room. And every single day, if I would wear clothes, school clothes, they all came from Mark, then David, then Greg, hand me down. I'm sure you know many people like that. Every single thing I got, okay, if I got pocket money, okay, I would get, if I was 10 years old, I would get 10 cents in a whole month. I got nothing. Everything was secondhand, and so on and so on and so on. Come home, sleep on the floor. But every single day, we went to the best private school. All of us, all 5 children, went to private schools. We had all the textbooks, everything. Come home and sleep on the floor. Because my father said he doesn't care where we sleep, but he cares what happens to our brains, okay? And that's why all the money in the family went to education, and that's why 34 of us are all over the world, able to do whatever we want. When we count all the degrees, just in my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, and my sister, we've got, I think, 35 degrees between all of us. My father got 7 degrees. My mom had 6 degrees. My oldest brother's got 5 degrees. I've got 4 degrees and 2 honorary doctorates. It goes on and on and on like that. Okay, so in my family, education was like a religion. It was like a religion. If you had to go hungry, it was okay as long as you were studying and reading and so on. But the other thing my dad believed in was in service, and if you give to others, you will get back. So later on, my dad, when he was a gynecologist and an obstetrician, it's a doctor who looks after women, delivers their babies and so on, he was very, very successful. But it was during the years of apartheid, and he said there is no way he's going to have a practice only for white women. So he opened up his practice to all races. Everybody could come, anybody could come. A lot of white patients stopped coming. He didn't care. He carried on. And twice a week, every single week, and I remember when I was young, going and waiting outside the prison. And that wasn't because a member of my family was in prison, but because my father said it is absolutely unjust that people are locked away because of the color of their skin and because of their political beliefs that they want democracy in this country. And there's all these women in jail who can't, no one will deliver their babies, no one will take care of them, and so on. So 2 days every week he went for free to jail and saw these women. And he did it for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And so later on, once I went to university and I went through Wits, and then I did my honors through Wits, and then I studied to become an actuary, and I became an actuary. Education brings you power, and it does bring you money. And I was At the age of 26, 27 years old, I was earning 1.3 million rand salary. I was a young guy. I could do whatever I wanted, travel wherever I wanted. That was 1995, the new South Africa. And that's what education does. That's what education does, and good entrepreneurship, same thing. Same thing. It's the only way you can create wealth. Education and entrepreneurship. Those are the two ways we can end poverty in this country, and the only ways we can end poverty. So it was 27 years old. I had the whole world before me. Everyone I kind of knew was thinking South Africa didn't have a future, we must emigrate, we must leave, and so on. And you know that 4 million educated people have left this country. Australia, England, you look everywhere, all around the world, Canada. South Africans are running many of those companies and many of those countries. And so I also thought I'm going to leave. I went and I organized jobs in the States, 2 jobs. Came back to South Africa, I started to pack. Then I thought, what if I don't like America? I better go find somewhere else. I went to New Zealand. I got papers for New Zealand. Then I thought, well, my brother Greg's going to be unhappy if I don't look at Australia, because he had gone to Australia. So I went and I got 2 jobs in Australia. So then I came back to South Africa. I packed up all my stuff. I had 6 jobs in 3 continents around the world. Multi-million rand jobs, fantastic jobs. And I packed up everything. 43 boxes of clothes, all my actuarial books, everything I had. And I put in my mom's cellar. And then I bought my air ticket and I was ready to go. And then 2 weeks before leaving South Africa, I completely changed my mind. And I stayed up all night one night. I'd been thinking about it for about 6 weeks. Stayed up all night one night and I said, you know, if we all run away and we don't invest in this country and we don't get the basic fundamentals right, which are education and entrepreneurship, we are never going to have a future in South Africa. And we're just cowards and so on. And I'm not a very brave person, but anyway, I decided by that morning that I was going to stay in South Africa and try and make a difference. And then the next week, I joined an organization called Community Individual Development Association. And then 1 week later, I was in Alex Township. And then I spent 4 years in Alex and in Soweto and in Davidton every single day. And I started in Alex. I'm sure some of your schools in Alex? Anyone here? No one from Alex? Davidton as well. Okay. When he started in Alex, that was 1995. And I remember, like, in the first week I started working there in schools, and my mom cut a clipping out of the newspaper that the most dangerous road in the whole world was London Road, Alexandra. More people were murdered in that road than anywhere else. My father didn't want to speak to me for about 2 years. He said he gave his whole life so that we could get educated and be successful, and that we'd have freedom in this country. Now we've got freedom. Why do I want to give away everything and just go and do this? Anyway, later on he did understand, and we worked with 9,000 school kids over a 3-year period, and I'm not going to take much time. And we did something very, very interesting, which I'll only tell you about if you ask me in a question, because time is short. But we increased pass rates for 9,000 kids by 25% on over 100,000 school marks. At the time, Carter Asmal was the Minister of Education, and he said if any organization could increase pass rates by just 5%, it would be an act of national heroism if a whole school went up 5%. And we had whole schools going up by 25%. And what we learned, and really I want to give that message, and it's exactly what she was saying, exactly what you were saying. Education is about people. The whole purpose of education is about people. It's to educate young people. It's about teachers and students. It's about hearts and minds. If this is asleep and angry and depressed and afraid and unable to learn and stressed, you can put that student in the best school in the world and nothing will happen. And same thing with teaching. Teaching is about this and about this. And teaching is stressful and it's tiring and it's hard. And unless one's heart and love and passion is in teaching, It's the hardest profession in the whole world. But if one's heart is in it, it's the most fulfilling profession in the whole world. And we did very, very interesting things in schools and helped massively increase pass rates and change other school outcomes. And then we started to find exactly what we all know is South Africans leave school, and what happens to them? 5% of black youth in this country end up going to university and getting a degree. And we know for the country as a whole, only 2% of South Africans have got a degree. Okay? There was a study done this year by CDE. There are hundreds of thousands of people in universities. So you could say, how is that possible? The reason it's possible, and I saw that Cliffy sent that in the mail going out, is that the failure rates are so high. You know that at UNISA, the best pass rate that they've had in like over 15 years now is 12% of people who start will get a UNISA degree in 5 years. So out of 100, 12 will get a degree. At TechNISA, which was the old Technicon South Africa, distance education was 4 out of 100. But for all the universities in the country, it's 15. So out of 100 people who start university, then 15 are going to get a degree. Okay? So we started to see all these young people coming out of high school who are so brilliant. And the other thing we learned is that every single person is a genius waiting to happen. There isn't one child, and somebody, I can't remember her name, was talking about the average. And that's the sad thing that we've done in education today. And it's true. We do have people functioning at very average level and below average level. But that's a function for how we're educating people, because there isn't a person that I've come across, and I've worked with thousands and tens of thousands of learners, that doesn't have absolutely unique gifts, God-given potential, total genius if you can develop that genius. And what we set out to do was to prove that. We wanted to prove. We started reading and looking all over the world. Where are there universities, where are there schools that can take people that are average and make them exceptional? Because that's what matters. It doesn't matter to be like Harvard, where you take a genius in and you send a genius out. That doesn't matter. What matters, can you take somebody who's average in and you send a genius out? That's education worthy of the name. And that's what we started to look for and find. And then later on we said, okay, because our universities are so elitist, because they're so hard to get into, they make it so impossible, and then most people fail or drop out either because of money or academic ability or emotional issues, family issues, etc., etc., etc. We said we want to prove we can create new kind of universities in South Africa. And we had no buildings, no money, no books, no teachers, no computers, no software, no accreditation. And this is where entrepreneurship comes in. Because if somebody had come to us and said, here's R1 billion, start a university, what would we have done? We would have started WITS 2. We might have even called it WITS 2. Okay? Or UP2, or something like that. But because we had nothing, we had to reinvent completely the way a university could run, and how it could really think differently about bringing out the genius in young people and offer them business degrees, computer degrees, and so on. And really, with absolutely nothing, you can start anything. And what we wanted to prove is that even kids in street shelters, orphanages, any schools, because I've seen it doesn't matter if you come from a poor family. It doesn't matter where you come from. That's irrelevant. What matters is where you think you're going. Because if where you think you're going is greatness, you will achieve greatness and no one can stop you. And I always say that to our students. No army can stop somebody who's awake. Nobody can stop Richard Branson. He's taken on every single industry, 300 industries, and built businesses. And across the board, he builds incredibly successful things out of nothing. Now he's sending people into space, and then he wants to take people to the deepest areas of the ocean, and on and on and on. If somebody's awake, no one can stop them. No army, nothing can stop them. This is what we have to do in education. So I just want to conclude. There's so much I'd love to share with you, but time is late. And just to say, over these 13 years, it's 18 years we've been doing this work, but 13, 14 years we've been building these higher education institutions from nothing. Not getting 1 cent from government. Our students give us, when we first started, it was 350 Rand a year. And then it went to 100 Rand a month, and now we charge 200 Rand a month to go through university, to do a business degree, to study economics and finance and human resource management and strategy, and so on and so on and so on. And then students can go into a master's degree. We partner with Regenesis. We partner with a top university in America, recognized in South Africa. And we have now, through these different institutions, put just under 6,000 young people through higher education, through university, without 1 cent from government and without money from those students. And this is what entrepreneurship is about, because no one gave us stuff. It didn't mean we couldn't do it and that we're going to stop and not try. Our graduates today, those 6,000 people, are all working. We've got over 1,000 people in F&B, over 400 people in Nedbank. We've got people in Google, Microsoft, right across the whole economy, in government, everywhere. If we add up their salaries together, they're earning 300 million Rand, rather than being unemployed on the streets doing nothing. If we add up their salaries until the time that they retire, they will earn 10 billion Rand over the course of their working careers. So if you remember what I was saying, my dad put 34 of us through university. We've put just under 6,000, but our target is to put 100,000 people through university. It's probably going to take us another 30 years. But we want to create 100,000 Nelson Mandelas, Bishop Tutus, great leaders who can take South Africa forward. So that's our vision. And I'm saying to all the schools and reaching out to all the Peermont schools, if you've got learners who you feel could achieve great things and don't have the opportunity to go to university, and they're coming from families that couldn't support them, send them to us. We'll give them bursaries. We'll work with you. We'll find a way to give them education. Next year we'll be giving... Thank you. Next year we'll be giving bursaries of 35 million Rand. Okay? So if you're interested, get in touch with us. And we would love to help, but we've got 3 things that we do if learners come to us. The first thing, they have to help run their own university. Okay, so they have to help clean the school, cook their own food, run their own library, their own computer labs, etc. And they all work while they're at the institution. So they work in a call center, they work in other companies we partner with, because we're not interested in education that's only academic. And in that way, they actually earn some money after the end of first year. Second thing they all have to do is to go back to their high school where they came from and to teach. So in their holidays, they have to go back and teach, and it's part of their qualification. Otherwise, they cannot get a degree. Okay? And then the third thing they have to do is when they graduate, we will place them in a job or help them build a business. But 600 Rand a month, interest-free, they will repay to fund another student, and we call it pay it forward, that they can choose. So they can choose their own brother, their own sister, their own cousin, but they will put somebody else through university. Exactly the same idea. Okay? So, just in conclusion, I just want to say, you are the future of South Africa. How many teachers in this country would come for an all-day event on a Saturday? Okay? There's probably great sport going on. There's probably lots you could be watching on TV. And here you are, and it's 5 o'clock. I think we should clap for all of you and your dedication. That's an amazing achievement. Really, that's impressive. And those educators who are here with learners, your students are going to learn from you, because the fact that you took the time and the effort to be here for a whole day on a Saturday and organize everything, it just shows the kind of teachers that you are. And that is really fantastic to see for this country. So if there are schools that want to work with us on this national initiative in the Human Resource Development Council on entrepreneurship, we'd love to work with you. Please, if you do want to create a website for your school, do that. If you are interested in implementing a program on entrepreneurship at grade 10, later on grade 11, grade 9, and so on, would love to work with you. If you do have learners who are looking for education post-matric, would love to work with you. And if you think your school could perform better and it's not yet achieving its potential, let's find a time to talk. because we'd also love to work with you. So thank you so much. Thank you to Clifford and Piermont and Angela for the invitation and the great work that you guys are doing. Thank you.